Welcome to Launching Logistics, where we explore the latest trends, strategies, and innovations shaping the transportation industry. I'm your host, Jim Becker, and today we have an exciting episode for you. If you've ever wondered how marketing fits into the fast-paced world of transportation and logistics, you're in for a treat. Our guest today is someone who knows this world inside and out. Jennifer Karpus-Romain, the Executive Director of the Transportation Marketing and Sales Association, or better known as TMSA. She'll be joining us to discuss the often overlooked yet critical role of marketing and how it plays in our industry. TMSA has been around for over 100 years, helping professionals in the transportation space, whether they're growing in trucking, railroad, 3PLs, or a number of logistics-focused businesses. They navigate the complexities of sales and marketing. Under Jennifer's leadership, the association has been driving forward initiatives that not only modernize the industry, but also provides resources, insights, and benchmarks that help businesses thrive in an ever-changing environment. In today's conversation, we're going to explore some of the big questions. How do you make your company stand out in a crowded market? What role does storytelling play in creating connections with customers? And how can the latest technologies like AI help improve, not replace, the human touch that's essential in marketing? But before we dive into all of that, let's take a moment to reflect on why marketing is so important in the transportation industry. It's not just about generating leads or closing deals. It's about building relationships, creating trust, and positioning your company as the go-to solution for your clients' challenges. And that's where organizations like the TMSA come in, equipping professionals with the tools, the knowledge, and networks they need to really succeed. I can't wait for you to hear what Jennifer has to say, but I'm going to hold off on giving too much away right now. You'll have to stick around for the full conversation to get the insights that could transform the way you think about marketing and the sales in your own business. So whether you're a logistics leader, a sales professional, or someone looking to understand how marketing drives growth in this industry, this episode is for you. Be sure to stay until the end, and as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Now, let's get into it with Jennifer Karpus-Romain of the TMSA. You know, one thing I didn't know is that you're an adjunct professor, right? And tell me a little bit about that. When did that start for you? Why? And in what area are you an adjunct professor now?
So I haven't taught an active class in a couple of years, but I have for years taught on the community college level. And I keep thinking like, oh, I've probably fallen off the active list and need to like put my name back in and be like, I'm still ready to take classes, or administer classes really. I taught in content marketing and social media marketing. So those are definitely my strong suits and where I started in the marketing game. So I actually started my career in journalism, and I wrote for B2B publications. And at the time, it was like 2011-ish at this time where I was working there. And we had Facebook and we had a social media presence, but the online team was who was doing it. And I was very confused on why there wasn't an editorial voice in that. Like I felt like that was really important, that we are making sure that we are being the voice of the publications because we're the editorial team. So I kind of started doing more and more of that. And this was before you had to pay for it. I say I'm a social media dinosaur, if you will, because I was there. And that's my first slide when I teach social media marketing is like I have all the dinosaurs and the asteroids of like pay-per-click and like all the ads and all those things come in and ruin all the happy dinosaurs that existed before all that. But I was writing in the tire industry, and one of the publications I worked for targeted independent tire dealers. And I was like, things like Facebook and Snapchat was like a big thing, then I was like, you can do that with coupons. Like they send you what is wrong with their car. You send them a coupon. They have no idea what that coupon is worth, but they have to show up and show you like the active ad, things like that. There was a lot of fun things that you could do, play around with. And I really, really liked that. And so I slowly kind of transitioned into the marketing side, and then I still write journalistically on the side in my free time outside of TMSA in the marketing world. But I really loved helping people tell their story and find their unique identifier and pushing them forward. So when I then went to teach, it was an interesting switch because I was used to social media marketing for a business, and a lot of the students were there to market themselves and like, oh, we are now either a brand or we are wanting to be like a makeup artist, but I want to utilize social media to raise my brand awareness and all that stuff. So that was an interesting switch for me because I was like, okay, well, there's still a lot of principles that can be taken in. And I really wanted them to know how fast trends go on the internet, but where to find really good information, where like up to date, like Social Media Examiner and all the different sites that are out there for that kind of stuff, and where you can learn on your feet, doing things like Google Analytics training, even though that's a little bit out of social, but still really important for you to know it all comes in together. Doing like HubSpot training and all that kind of stuff that will really advance who you are. And then in the content marketing world, that was really fun because coming from journalism and then being a content writer, being able to kind of mesh all of those pieces together and teach that was really, really cool.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah, it seems like you bring a lot of light wherever you go. And whenever I've been with you, you ruminate a whole bunch of light to really just shine light on things that maybe people aren't seeing. And now it explains a couple of things with the journalism and the marketing, and not to mention the writing. And with all the awards that you've accumulated over the years, it's beautiful. One thing that I love to just dive into a little bit is the writing, because a lot of people, that's some of the negative things that they have for themselves, or at least they speak to themselves as it's negative. What are the different types of writing styles that you're now seeing in social media and or in writing books, to give us a narrative, if you will?
well, I still think the hero's journey is going to be really important for any type of engagement that you're doing, whether it's in fiction or you can apply those business practices to your writing. But I think one thing to remember from a business standpoint is you're not the hero of your story. Like you're the guide. You're the man or woman or whoever that's guiding them through the journey. The hero is your customer. And so I feel like that's a disconnect that people sometimes forget about. People don't really care about what you do. They care about what you can do for them or with them to solve their problems. So I think that's really important when you're doing marketing, when you're doing sales, is like you're not the hero. So take yourself, up out of that seat and be the seat that's next to them, guiding them through that process. So I think that's really, really important, especially when we are talking about our content, drafting our information, things like that. You're not right, you're writing it for somebody else to receive. And then in that, how do people receive information? I always find it really funny that when we're kids, we're taught about the different ways that people learn. Some people like to read, some people need to see, some people are hands-on learners. And then we have things like my son has ADHD, and that's like a whole different ballgame of teaching and learning and engaging. But then we go into the workplace and we're writing and we're doing things and we don't factor in that anymore. It's like when we're adults, we're just expected to receive information one way and we just still don't. Everyone is still a little bit different. So thinking about that, okay, well, this is a podcast, it's an interview, we're talking. A lot of people like to absorb information this way. Some people still want to read the information. They really want to sit. Like for me, I am really fast paced. I'm moving things all the time. I love listening to podcasts, like when I'm organizing my craft closet and when I'm driving places and things like that. But if I really want to absorb myself and take a really deep dive like that, I need to be like dedicate some time to and really focus in and sit and think and have my highlighter out and like put lines through it and all that kind of stuff. But if we're only presenting content in one way, we're only going to be attracting one type of learner. So really expanding those different pieces and making sure that it's accessible for everybody, and thinking through how they're receiving information. Like if we're a trucking company and we want our drivers to know information, are we sending it to them in an audio file? Because that's probably the easiest way for them to receive that information, because they're driving. So there's simple things like that I think are still not always being thought through. The best advice I ever got actually in journalism school, but I take it through everything, is just know your audience. I actually just will shout this at my husband when he's trying to pitch something, appeal to who you're speaking to, not necessarily what you would get excited for. And so I think that's really important, thinking, how are people accessing information? What do they care about? How can I make sure I'm reaching them? Things like that. Really taking that the step further is important, especially marketing and salespeople that are telling that story, that are engaging, that are trying to work with customers and clients.
Absolutely. You bring up a really, really good point where, we are all consuming information, not only when we're, on social media, when we're driving around, the billboards we see, or what we hear in conversations, or just the feeling that we get. Statistically, I've heard that somewhere in the area of 40 something percent of us are visual learners. We learn 40 something percent, and that's how we consume it. We see it and we take it in. Another 30 something percent that we're hearing something, and that's how we take that information in. And then there's only a small two-digit, 14 to 17% of us that are kinesthetic learners, that we feel a certain way when that information comes in. Do you find yourself writing in this way, this vivid way, where you're really being present tense to describe things so that the reader can actually see it from a vivid way and be able to hear it from a vivid way as well as feeling?
Yeah, I think it's important to give the scope and details that you want, but to make it platform appropriate too. So, yes, you can put more information on social media. It doesn't have to be just one line, but also if you have a really, really long piece of content that's on LinkedIn, make sure the narrative is worthy of that. Don't just do it because you want to, but if you're being a little bit more vulnerable or telling a little bit more scope, then those things call for it. And then when you're writing longer form content, you do want to entice people to continue reading and to want to engage, which that was probably the hardest part of switching from journalism, is you're always taught to put the most important information right up front, because then people will want the details, which I think in theory in journalistic articles, that's how it should be, but creative writing is a little bit different. I also, one thing, whenever I have interns or people coming into the field, I remind them that everything you write, whether it's a social media post or a longer form content or a white paper, a blog, whatever that is somebody's first interaction with yourself, with you, with your brand, with your company. It is not just one of 15 posts I'm asking you to write that you are sitting in for the next 2 hours or whatever. This is somebody's entry point into who we are and what we do. And if you were that person, how are you receiving this information? Do you understand what our business is? Do you understand what we do? Do we sound fun and engaging the way we want to? Whatever is our brand voice in that one post matching the one that we just posted before? And I think it's really easy in every day when we're just trying to push things out and we're all super busy and we're all spread super thin, and to forget that this could be someone's first impression of you, and what does that seem like? And so that's something that I try to teach if I am teaching, or if I have interns or people coming into the field or whatever. I think that's a really important thing to remember with everything that you're writing. And same with if you are embracing AI, which people do, I do too, but what does the AI bot say? And is it still your voice? And it can start to mimic some of that stuff a little bit better, but don't forget your humanity and who you are then with what you're putting out either.
Absolutely. Yeah, usually you can tell what's AI and what's not, especially in the narrative as you're talking. And do you lose that humanistic piece? I really have to shake, all the negativism that's spearing at me with who I am. And when I'm able to will that off, it's really helpful to really be with the content in which that I'm consuming, right? Especially looking up those words that maybe I don't know, that were from the 17th century that are now archaic, if you will. And I basically open up my precociousness, if you will, building that verbose vocabulary so that every time I see a word I'm unfamiliar with, I become from the unfamiliar to the familiar, which really helps me with everything that I'm doing in my life. And it sounds like you kind of do the same thing and you're kind of outvoted as well.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of figure out what works for you and then move forward with it.
Yeah, I love how you brought all that together. And, I guess this is where, somehow you ended up at the TMSA. And, I'd like to hear more about, how you ended up there with your background and what you do there and what really inspires you um, with that role that you now have.
So yes, I'm the executive director at the Transportation Marketing and Sales Association, and I will have been in this role for well, almost 3 years now. So November 1st will be my 3-year anniversary here, which seems crazy to me. I get that question because I obviously just spoke about like my love of words and how I was a journalist and all this stuff. And they're like, but how did you end up running a trade nonprofit in the transportation space? How does that line work? Well, the line doesn't work. It goes like this. So I started my career in journalism, did that. Really fell in love with marketing. So then I switched over, worked at a marketing agency, loved working with clients, and I always gravitated to the industrial side of things. Like I've never worked in B2C really. It's always been B2B. I do help, it does help. My husband's in manufacturing. And so he's an engineer. He's worked at two different companies. And so it gives us a line to talk about too. Cause I have always been on the creative space and he's more like engineer guy. And so, but there was overlap there. And so whether I was writing about tires or like the manufacturing processes or whatever that looked like as a journalist, then when I switched over to the marketing agency, it benefited me that I was able to kind of speak those languages a bit and I understood more about the processes behind of what we were doing and what our customers were doing. And so I really, really liked that. After working at a marketing agency for a little bit and having different customers, I branched out and ended up working for a software integration company as their director of marketing. And I oversaw all of the different pieces. So digital marketing, trade shows, all of that. And they hired me because they were looking to expand into different industries and they needed somebody that could kind of talk that language, but also have the perception. So we did like software integration, CRM, all of that kind of stuff. And it was funny though, because when I first started there, I felt inadequate in some ways because everyone spoke so specifically on the tech side. And then I realized one day, oh, wait, everyone we're selling to is a sales or marketing person. So if I don't understand what you're talking about, they're not going to understand what you're talking about. And then I felt very valuable. And that's what we worked on internally is making sure that the messaging and things lined up so that our actual customer understood what we were doing. And one of those markets that we served was the transportation space. And that's how I came into TMSA. So I was actually a member. They used to be called affiliate members at the time. Now they're partner members. And the partner members or TMSA are the people who are serving the industry, trying to help sales and marketing professionals be more efficient in their roles, partner with them like marketing agencies, sales coaches, recruitment firms, technology providers that provide things like CRM and sales automation, marketing automation, all of that kind of stuff. And so I became a member. And so that was like 2017. We became members. I came to my first show in 2018. I just fell in love with the organization. I loved everything about it. I loved the people. I loved what it represented. It was such a need. And at the time that I joined, I was a solo director of marketing. I was the only person who did marketing at my company. A little bit later on, we merged. And so there was still two of us, but still really small, and trying to figure out what that looked like and what other people were doing and how were you able to execute, and ask your team to give you the things that you needed to be able to execute on the things that they actually wanted you to do and all of that. So being able to have those conversations, and even as like a marketing person, being able to pick the brain of salespeople that I met in TMSA so that I felt smarter with my own sales team. Like, okay, like let me create the collateral that they actually want instead of me guessing, because I don't want to waste their time. I want to be able to give them what they need. And so that was really important. I joined the education committee. Later on, I led the marketing committee. I joined the board of directors, very active. And then we knew that the previous management firm was looking to put it into new hands. TMSA was wonderful, but it definitely needed a modernization to kind of push forward. Like COVID hit us hard as it hit everybody hard. How do we now continue to meet the needs of marketing and sales professional in the space? So I kind of threw my hat in the ring, because after being on the board and serving on different committees, I had an idea of what it was that we could move forward with. I knew we needed a new website. I knew we needed a different and more easily accessible member portal. I knew we needed to better highlight what we were actually doing. So one of the best things that we do is this benchmarking study, which I'm in the end phases of finishing it. But we benchmark sales and marketing stats just for this industry. And it has like, how is your sales team broken down? Are you hitting your quotas? If you're not hitting your quotas, what are the reasons why you're not doing it? How has that shifted from 2 years ago? Because it's pretty substantially different from 2 years ago. What technologies are you using? With AI now coming in, how are you using AI? Is it governed? All of this different stuff, it's all there, and it's all just for this industry. And it's a membership perk. It's something that only members get. And so, but like really emphasizing that, talking about it, saying, this is a big use case for TMSA membership, of pitching to your boss of why you should continue to be a member, and just thinking through different things that we could do. And so I had a passion for it, and the membership entrusted me to lead. And so, which has been one of the most rewarding things of my career, being a pretty new leader, but having the backing and the support of not just the board of directors, but the membership at large, and continuing to be able to lead and shift and evolve and take a listen to our current members, past members, hopefully future members, to see how TMSA can continue to help serve them and serve the industry at large.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how, your journalism as well as your writing and what you did in the past, and then coming to the TMSA, 3 years ago, not only is who you are being that light, you're able to also be that intermediary, that bridges the past to the present, as well as now where you're at, helping your clients and other team members, just like being able to do the survey, getting that out there to benchmark is really making a difference. Now, with all that of what you have seen in your roles of marketing and sales professionals, as they evolve and this business evolves in logistics and in our transportation industry, how have you seen that marketing has changed, especially over the last few years, compared to the way that it has been in the archaic way of being, if you will?
Yeah, I definitely think that the thing that I wish would change that hasn't changed is the overall understanding of the importance of marketing. And that's one of my favorite things when leaders come to TMSA. My favorite thing is when they tell me when they leave, I look at marketing and everything differently now. I understand the value of marketing. I understand I'm so happy I'm here and I'm engaging, and we're going to put these practices into our sales and marketing efforts when we move forward. Because so often we see the marketing budget is the first to get cut. And I get that. And you then are pressuring your marketing teams to continue to deliver more with less. And that is really, really hard. And so then you're in this position where you have to execute and you have to prove your ROI, but you're not having a lot of the support to kind of get there. But there are, of course, creative ways that we can do that. One of the other big things that I've seen is the exposure of marketing in a way we haven't seen it before, because our softwares are more integrated now than they ever have been. So in the past, you would have like your marketing automation over here, your sales over here, your customer over here, all of this stuff. But now with software integrations or all in one platforms that we're utilizing more, people can see more about what marketing is doing, which is good and bad, because they still don't always know what it means. They could be like, oh, you sent a lot of emails out, but they don't necessarily know how to look for an open rate or a click rate or what that means, or like then being able to see that customer journey, like, okay, this person actually did have like 80 touch points before we then made this sale or whatever. So I think the exposure is good, because anytime people can better understand the value of marketing is great. But on the flip side, if you've never worked in that role, you just don't know what that is or what that means. And so it can get kind of murky, and you still want people to do their role and you do yours. But I do think that integrating does create efficiencies, and we can better see that customer journey line. I still always recommend, when you get a new customer, to ask them, hey, where was the first time you saw us? First time you heard about us? Because one, it is probably not necessarily what you might think it is. Like, and of course, the salesperson is who has brought that person home and gets the sale. But it really helps to give marketing credit if those are coming in through an MQL, through some of your marketing touches. But it also helps you to know if your software is working the way you want it to. Because if the answer isn't the one that you know because it's the one in your system, then how do we better map that for the future so that we know those answers already? And I feel like a lot of times people will forget to ask that. And you just, it really helps to kind of close those loops together to be like, oh, okay, you said you heard from us. Okay, cool. That's actually where in our CRM system, we see that's where they came in. That's great. Or, oh, we saw that as like the third touch point. This guy just forgot about these things over here, but that's fine. He got here eventually. So I think those things are really important. Of course, AI is the thing that everybody is doing more now of. And as a writer, it's a, double-edged sword a bit, because I don't think it takes away the importance of good writing and proper writing. Like you said, you can typically tell when something is AI generated and when it isn't. And the thing I fear the most is us forgetting that AI tools, any like efficiency tools, are that to be made to be more efficient so that you can do your job better. And to me, especially for sales and marketing roles, a big piece of your job is that human connection, creating those stories, working with people, taking care of people, selling, all that. And so we shouldn't use AI to lose our humanity. We should be using AI to do some of this stuff over here so that we can be better humans to sell, engage, market, all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like some of those tools that we use, those tools should be helping us get to the next level. Those tools shouldn't be like taking away us doing that piece of our job. Now, there's certain things that AI is great at like, okay, send this out at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's when I want this to go out. Let's send this out at noon. That's when I want that to go out. That's beautiful to use, artificial intelligence to kind of set those up. But when it comes to the crafting of a letter, the crafting of your point that you want to really just create vividly for someone, it's so important to have that human touch so that it really lands over there to the human being from a human being. I don't feel that AI is at that level yet. That And it will be at some point in time that it could take everything of who we are and really put that information into a paragraph or a story and tell it in a certain way. And I think sometimes just listening and reading some of the things that I see out there, I'm like, okay, that's AI. Do I? No, I'm not going to even, you know, go into that. And because I post each and every day, and when I'm posting something that, I've had my touch on, and it's me. I've been doing social media pretty hard since 2019, and I'm sure you've seen some of it. And as we go on, it's keeping that alive and keeping it what it is, as one of the first people in transportation that has really taken, that on firsthand and foremost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it can have a place. Like I've definitely used ChatGPT when my brain just doesn't it can't find the words I'm looking for. So I'll be like, say this. And then I look at it and I think about it and then I turn it into me. So it's great for a starting point, especially for these smaller marketing teams. Like I use it like I'm being an editor sometimes. So instead of being the writer, you're the editor. You still then make it what it needs to be. You still craft it. You still make sure it's in your voice. You make sure it doesn't. I mean, ChatGPT itself even says the robot makes mistakes. Make sure you check this at the bottom. And so I feel like that's really important is that you're still the expert on what you do and who you are. The AI isn't. And so making sure that you're utilizing it in those ways and not um, offsetting it or I don't know. I feel like that's the piece that is missing sometimes in these. And it's popping up all over the place. Like you can go in LinkedIn and it like click a button and it'll do like an AI thing now. And I know like we use HubSpot and you can click an AI generator and it'll come up. And I click them sometimes just to see what they say. And most of the time it's not what I would say. But I think it can be a really great starting point, but it shouldn't be your finishing point. So keeping that in mind. And I do think the more and more people use it, the more we'll have this like loss of what is it for? And it comes to me, it comes back to what I was saying at the beginning of knowing your audience and making sure that you're crafting your content for those people. And AI will continue to get more sophisticated and do that. But that's your job is to make sure, hey, I'm crafting this for this person. I need to make sure that that's what that looks like. And whether that's one sales email or a huge marketing campaign, knowing your audience and knowing your purpose, I think are really, really important because if you lose sight of that, then you're not going to get any of the results that you want because you're not even doing it with your own purpose in mind.
Absolutely. Knowing your purpose is like should be number one, and knowing your audience, number two. Just like, with you, you've connected with so many people in your role over there for the last 3 years at TMSA. I know that TMSA focuses really heavily on really creating connections within the industry. Can you share one or two of the examples how these connections have helped other individuals grow their companies?
Absolutely. I do think that leadership piece and the importance of marketing has been a huge piece of that. So people coming in that may have always been a salesperson, didn't really understand the real value of marketing and vice versa, learning how to work together. At the end of the day, both sales and marketing are trying to create revenue for your business. They just are at different parts of the pipeline. So understanding how both of those things can work together are crucial for both sides of the business. I also think it's really great for mentorships. So we see a lot of like younger females coming in and we encourage them to reach out to, we have really great gender diversity in TMSA and we're continuing to improve across the board with all different types of diversity. But I think that's really important because maybe you're someone who you've only worked for a man and you want a female mentor, or you've only had a female mentor and you want a man's perspective or whatever that looks like. people are in the space. Like, I love that I can talk to people at any stage of their marketing and sales career in transportation and logistics through TMSA. Like, that is just really impactful. And that's something that I always try to do. So this was something I started before I even took over TMSA, but we call it the TMSA Buddy Program. And when you come to your first conference, you can opt in to getting a TMSA buddy. And we really think probably too much on who these buddies are, and like try to match you as best we can to somebody that we think would be a good fit for you. But so you come in and we match you with somebody, and that person you can schedule. We recommend scheduling a Zoom call before you come to conference, meeting up with them when you're at conference, like before the opening cocktail reception, getting to know them, telling them, hey, this is what I'm looking for at this conference, or this is what I'm looking through my membership at TMSA. Can you help me? And so those connections are really important. And sometimes they're just for the conference and then people part, but we've had people who like kind of continue this relationship on. And we've expanded like our membership committee, and now they all have kind of accounts, and they all touch base with people, the membership, regularly throughout the year. Are your needs being met? Hey, and then when it's renewal time, hey, did you get your renewal email? Because a lot of times when people aren't renewing, it's as simple as that. Like, hey, did you get that email that told you that your renewal's up? No, let me resend it to you, or things like that. How can we meet your need? Are there new people that should be on your account? All that kind of stuff. Just really great touch points throughout the year. But I do think that is so important, and that this year at Elevate, when I opened the show, that was part of what my message was, is like, be your most authentic self, but be a little bit vulnerable and reach out to somebody and have those conversations and ask your weirdest questions. And being able to do that in a safe space is so worthwhile, because no one knows everything, and the industry is changing so much, and this is a tougher market right now, and there's a lot of people who haven't experienced that here, that are newer to the industry, and having that from more experienced people who've weathered those storms, and like getting tips and tools for that is incredibly important. And so I feel like a lot of those connections are there, and through our committee involvement, people are then having those touch points numerous times throughout the year, and not just at like a one-day conference. They're regularly communicating with each other.
Yeah, and it's so important. I think you really struck on something that is one of my values, is that's being vulnerable. Sharing really where you are weak in certain areas. Like I shared this morning, I wanted this PowerPoint presentation, and I wanted it on my breakout room, not in the main town hall that we were having. And I explicitly said that to my admin. And then when I get there, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's my regular, okay, I'm doing it in the main room, not a problem. And I just shared that with, this is what's going on with me, like right now. And so when you are at conference, and you guys have several conferences per year, right? And I'd love to hear from you, like, when you are involved in so many different conferences, can you share like two memorable moments that you had a breakthrough, or you saw someone else have a breakthrough where they were vulnerable and they opened up and said, "Hey, you look like someone important, but I don't know who you are. Can I meet you?" And they did that, or you did that. What did you see at the conferences, and how many do you have per year?
So we have two conferences per year. We have Elevate, which is in June, which is our bigger event. And then we have our Executive Summit, which is geared towards leadership. And that's in October. So that's October 10th through 11th in Hoboken, New Jersey this year. So we are right in the mix of getting all that stuff together. Last year at that event, at the Executive Summit, our opening keynote was talking about organizational trust and how important it was. And I loved his whole presentation. Everyone was listening. If people had their computers open, they were actively taking notes and things. And it was at such an important part of our industry because if you remember last year, I mean, it kind of continues on, but like so many like mergers and acquisitions and vacancies happened that the employees didn't even know. Like they found out from the news. Like this was like a thing that was happening. And that was part of what we kind of talked about there is like your employees have to be able to trust that if something goes awry, like they're going to be the first to know. Like that should be like a baseline thing at a business. And it was really impactful because he also had asked people to share stories where they didn't feel organizational trust. And I shared a story about like being a female in the workplace, and I won't get into it, but for me, it wasn't even me telling the story. It was looking out, and I remember specifically seeing like one of my board members' face, like just like lay flat, like he could not believe that this was a situation I was ever in. And that meant more to me than I've already moved past the issue. But it was cool to see that turn or like when we do have like a DEI task force now at TMSA where we try to be more equitable and inclusive both at TMSA and to help our members. And it was, like the entire board approved a diversity chairperson on our board of directors. Like there was no question. And that was really important. So like those things are really cool to see. This year, I remember sitting and talking at a table and with her name is April Marone. And I just actually because of this conversation, I then interviewed her on the Move, which is TMSA's new podcast. And we talked about this, but she talked about how when she started her career as like a sales leader in logistics, she was not nice. She thought she had to be mean because that's like what she thought she had to do. And then at some point over time, she realized she has a son and she's like, what if people were treating him like this? And like, what would I tell him? And so she slowly over time developed how to be a better leader and not to just lead the one way. And it was really powerful to hear her talk about it. And there was other people at the table and we were just sitting there and I was like, can you come onto the podcast and share the story with me? And she did, which I thought was really cool too, because it was vulnerable in the moment to share that. It's even more vulnerable to go on a podcast and share it. And so I think that is a testament to TMSA and creating those spaces. And then for me personally, so TMSA celebrated its 100 year this year. So like we've been around for 100 years, which is so exciting. And I was like, do you know what we should do to celebrate? I should sing in front of everybody who comes to show, which is crazy. And I recognize that, but I did it. So what I did was I convinced a couple of my board members to pretend like they were from 1924 and like were the original founders of TMSA. And so they came on and they had like suspenders on and hats, and it was really funny. We gave them the script. And they talked about Denny and how like because Denny celebrated Denny Grimm, for people who I don't know who doesn't know him, but he has been a member of TMSA for 50 years. So we like highlighted him too. But I then sang Pure Imagination from Willy Wonka because to me, like, that's kind of what it is for those guys from 1924. Like, could you imagine 100 years later, they were advertising like for the railroads? Like and where we are today being all the commercial modes and marketing and sales. And we had a slideshow behind me that showed pictures from the past and all this stuff. And I thought it was great. I was like, our opening keynote was talking about the power of storytelling. So I'm like, great, we're going to tell a great, powerful story and we're going to do it in our own way. I'm going to sing. We're going to make these guys go on stage. And then it was like a week before conference. I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I think that was a good idea? But I did it. And I sang in front of all 200 plus people at conference, which was a very vulnerable moment for me. But I wanted to set the tone in which sometimes you have to be weird and vulnerable and tell a story differently in your way and not be afraid to take that leap. And so I did that.
Wow. Congratulations. I'm sure that went off fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, people liked it. I got good compliments on it. Don't ever do it again.
Yeah, and I'm sure then, he was there before deregulation, and life changed after deregulation. 10 years after he was a member, all of a sudden here deregulation happens and everything changes. Back then, the traffic clubs all looked a little bit different than they do today. And I've gone to some of those back in the early days. I started in 1991, and there was still an aftertaste how things used to be, and they were still complaining how it used to be. Well, now it's used to be is it is the way it is today. You know what I mean? And I love, like, really just how you brought us into that whole world. In companies, there is a way that things are done, right? There is a way that how things are done. Let's just say it's the background of an organization. It's the same thing with the lady you spoke of about her son, with how she had a background herself, and she had to portray herself a certain way, which was maybe a little off-putting to some, where now when you can really realize what that background is or that shadow, and you can have more of that light to illuminate, where you can actually see who you are or who you are being, it really alters, even through someone else's eyes sometimes, to get that reflection of who you are being or an organization is being. Does that make sense? Like, I love how you just brought those in there. I love what you're pointing to. I love who you're being. I love just looking at each person, and every idea of how we're separate from each other just melts away. And I just see human being and just human, right? And who we're being in that. And this is great. And I love what you're up to and what your stand is. And I love who you've become throughout all of this. I'm sure our listeners would like to know more information about the TMSA, as well as how they can get a hold of you and get more involved in your organization. Can you give us some information about how they can find more information about the organization of TMSA, as well as yourself, Jennifer?
Absolutely. So our website is www.tmsatoday.org. So all of our stuff is in there. You can see our events, all that. If you're interested specifically like on Executive Summit or whatever our big event that's coming up, that would be like events.tmsatoday.org. So for the next couple of weeks, there'll be Executive Summit. And then after that, it'll switch back to Elevate for next year. In terms of reaching me, my name is Jennifer Karpus-Romain, and you can reach me on LinkedIn very easily, or you can email me at jennifer@tmsatoday.org. We are a group of sales and marketing professionals inside of transportation and logistics. We have people that are in those sales and marketing roles at trucking companies, at railroads, at 3PLs, at port authorities, all of that. And then that partner membership that is also then the people who are trying to help them with their jobs, marketing agencies, sales coaches, all of that. So we're just a collection of people that are in those space that are trying to make sales and marketing better in the space. We have a bunch of different committees and things that people can get involved into, which I always recommend. I think the more you put into something like an industry association, the more you get out of it. And so that's really important. And the benchmarking study that I referenced, it will be coming out in 3 weeks now. So right before Executive Summit, we'll launch that for members. So a lot of great resources, especially, being in budget season, end of the year, what's happening, what are we supposed to do next year, and all those kinds of things. So a lot of exciting things, and always happy to chat about the industry or TMSA or anything.
Oh, Jennifer, thank you so much. It's such a blissfulness to see you and your customer service, and you're all about service. And that's what you have. You have customer service in a world of service, and it's just so great to see how you really help other people and really just continue unfolding throughout this life that you're generating. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
Of course, thanks for having me.
What a conversation that was with Jennifer Karpus-Romain. I hope you took away as much as I did from today's episode. One of the key takeaways for me is how marketing in the transportation and logistics industry is much more than just promotional campaigns and sales pitches. As Jennifer shared, it's about creating trust, building meaningful relationships, and understanding that your customer is the hero of the story. Your company is simply the guide, helping them solve their challenges. Jennifer also highlighted something that we can all really learn from, regardless of industry. The importance of adapting and evolving. The transportation sector has seen challenges in recent years, from technology shifts to customer expectations. And marketing has to really keep pace with these changes. The TMSA plays a crucial role in helping professionals stay ahead, offering tools like their benchmarking studies, educational resources, and opportunities to connect with others in this field. What really stood out for me was Jennifer's emphasis on how integrated marketing has become with the rest of the business, particularly sales. As the lines between sales and marketing continue to blur, it's more important than ever for these teams to collaborate closely to ensure a consistent message and a unified approach to reaching customers and the rise of digital tools. Whether it's AI or marketing automation, it's giving companies new ways to streamline their operations while still maintaining that all-important human touch. If you're in transportation, logistics, or any B2B industry, Jennifer's insights show just how powerful marketing can be when done right. It's not all about the number of emails you send out or the posts you make. It's about how you're engaging with your audience, the stories you're telling, and how well you know your customer's journey. I encourage you to check out TMSA's resources if you're looking to take your marketing and sales to the next level. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, they've got something for everyone, from their events to their benchmarking studies, and not to mention their educational content. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. How are you integrating marketing into the sales of your business? And are there any challenges that you're facing when it comes to standing out in a competitive market space? Let's keep the conversation going. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode of Launching Logistics. We've got more incredible guests lined up, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Until then, remember, we're all working toward elevating humanity, one post, one story, and one step at a time. See you next time.